Hello, everyone. Happy Friday, and thanks for sharing part of it with me. I'm Greg Swartz. I'm the director of the Water of Life. I'm also the big man. This is the wee Dram. The two of us together host this show every week. And this week, I'm really excited because I'm welcoming another big man. My friend Micky Plummer is going to be joining us, and Micky's got. I'll let him tell his story better than I can. But he is the UK brand ambassador for Mackmyra Swedish whiskey, which as if you've been watching these a lot, I've been really interested in exploring different whiskeys from different parts of the world, especially parts of the world that I've not had their whiskeys yet. I've had lots of American whiskey, I've had lots of Irish whiskey, but. So, without further ado, I am going to welcome, and I would hope you would do the same, Micky Plummer. Hello.
Hello. Good evening, Big G. How are you?
I'm pretty well. It's still pretty early.
Shows I've had lately. That's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Nicest intros I've had lately. So Micky Plummer, UK brand ambassador for Mackmyra, also the northern area of the UK area sales manager as well. So basically, I do everything north of Nottingham. So if you're north of Nottingham in the UK and you want some Mackmyra and your local shop doesn't have it, give me a shout and I'll try and rectify it the best I can. That's me, Englishman living in Scotland, selling Swedish whiskey. So I like a challenge, Greg. Do you know what I mean? I like a challenge.
Well, it's good whiskey, so it's that probably makes the challenge a little bit easier.
It certainly does. When up until a year and a half ago, I was an engineer that was just in love with whiskey, and got really into Mackmyra probably about 4 years ago. But I didn't ever think about having a career in whiskey, in all fairness. And then I thought I had an epiphany moment, if you will, where I was like, do you know what? I'm done with being an engineer and all the stresses of life that brings and all that sort of good stuff, So I was like, I really love my whiskey, so I put myself through some courses and I attend a few clubs in Glasgow and really got onto the scene properly. And I was like, you know what? This is the life for me. I see guys and girls stood up before me talking passionately about this liquid that I'm enjoying. And I go, I want to do that job. That is so cool. I want to do that job. So I quit engineering in November 2019. It was a bit of a daunting thing. And I knew that the area manager for Mackmyra at the time, a good friend, Alex Johnson, I kept pestering him, Alex, I want a job. Mick, I've got something coming up. Alex, I want a job. Mick, I've got something coming up. Right? And then in the beginning of February 2020, everything fell into place. I wanted to work for a distillery and for a company that produce a liquid that I can get behind and sell it honestly. Without having to put a salesman's face on and say this is the best liquid you'll ever try. I can get behind Mackmyra, everything that they do from the way that they distill and the sustainability aspect of everything as well, and obviously through to the liquid that we produce I really do enjoy. I was a big fan before I worked for them. It just makes life easier to not have to fake it, Greg. Do you know what I mean? Because like you said, we do produce a good liquid.
Someone who works for Bruichladdich said to me a few months ago, it's the best job you can have in whiskey is where the product is so good, you never, ever once have to convince someone to like your whiskey. All you have to do is convince them to try it, and it does the rest for you.
Yeah, so I find myself in that enviable position with Mackmyra, Greg. Especially lately, the past couple of years, some of the stuff I've been bringing out has just been really pushing the envelope and been mind-blowing, and I've probably through the show we'll talk about a couple of them, but it just helps. As soon as you get that, people Swedish whiskey, I don't know about that. Just try it. Just do me a favor. If you don't like it, that's fine. I can live with that. You know what I mean? But just try it. All right, cool. And as soon as they try it, they're like, oh wow, that's great. Obviously I'll probably be a bit over dramatic there, but a lot of people do say it like that. And the people go, oh, okay. And and it dawns on them actually that, you know, there are whiskies outside of Scotch that can be really, really good. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't all have to be about Scotch. Which, don't get me wrong, you'll see behind me and down there, I've got a fairly big rotation of whiskies and probably mainly Scotch as well. To be fair, obviously apart from the work shelves behind me, but yeah, so it's just nice. So I find with Mackmyra that it's familiar, yeah, in the fact that when you pick up a glass and it looks like a whiskey, it smells like a whiskey, and it tastes like a whiskey. You know, and you get that familiarity, and people, oh, okay, cool, I'll give it a go. And then as you're getting into it, obviously depending on which drama it is, something different happens. Something, you know, take for instance last year's spring summer seasonal we did Grand Thé, which means green tea. We used 4 different kinds of Japanese green tea, made it up with neutral grain spirit, added some Oloroso, and basically put that into some fresh Oloroso casks. Left that in there for a good while to season those casks, and then we finished a whiskey in there. And it's things like that that really, really tick the box for me for Mackmyra. You know, you couldn't imagine a Scotch distillery doing that. So we've taken like things, you know, like things that people know, like ex-bourbon casks, Oloroso casks. So people are like, okay, I know those words, I know those terms from drinking Scotch. But then we do something a little bit weird, well, not weird, but a little bit different. Sure. Let's say our chief nosing officer or our master blender, Angela Dorazio, Whiskey Hall of Famer and protege of Mr. Jim McEwen. You know, she really does put out some fantastic stuff. She's a bit of a crazy person. She's a fantastic woman. And to see her in some of her interviews and that, you think, I can see why Mackmyra do some of the stuff they do. Because you're a bit wacky. You're a bit crazy, you know? And yeah, so you can't imagine a Scotch being finished in a green tea, in a cask that's held green tea. You know?
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's where, you know, that's where we've got, I'm not going to say a slight edge because that's probably the wrong terminology to use, but that's where we can stand out and go with Scotch. You know what I mean? You go, okay, we've got a familiarity, but if you want something slightly different, have a go on this, try this one. Yeah. And you'll get that familiar whiskey notes that you're going to get. And then you go, oh, hang on a minute. There's something different there. And that's why it's just great fun working for Mackmyra, quite frankly.
You know, it's funny. It's funny you say that when you see her interviewed, you can sort of get the sense of the whiskey. I have often said that so many of the whiskeys that I really love, and I was lucky enough to spend enough time with people there and get immersed in the culture of the distillery. Yeah. The whiskeys really grow to reflect the personality of the people making it. Not just the placement, but the individuals. I mean, let's face it, if you want to talk about the film, Bruichladdich, the Jim McEwen, Mark Renier era of Bruichladdich was really clearly had all their DNA all over it. And the other example that's huge is, Billy Walker, perfect example. David Stewart and Balvenie, Balvenie feels like David Stewart, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's because he's been there so long. Do you know what I mean? You know, without David, Balvenie probably wouldn't be where it is now. And I'm a massive Balvenie fan. Everything that David and now Kelsey are putting together is just it's beautiful. It was one of my first wow whiskies. Do you know what I mean? I grew up in Plymouth, which is in the south of England. Do you know what I mean? Probably the least whiskey place in the world. But now we've got Dartmoor Distillery, Princeton Distillery, that are producing whiskies, etc. But yeah, so my first experience of a whiskey was, in a pub from a bottle that normally hangs upside down from an optic. Do you know what I mean? So, I'm not going to name drop brands because that's not very nice. But you can all envisage there's a couple of them out there, and you would take it like at New Year's Eve as a shot, and it would at least 40% ABV, and it would bounce. Quite frankly, you get that horrible burn in your chest and up your throat, and you go, "That is not for me. Whiskey is disgusting," And then later in life, I was 30, 31. On a nice long weekend to Aberfeldy, just through in Perthshire there, and staying there. And I was at the hotel bar, and all these all these whiskies in front. And I'm thinking, I've never been to a place like that before. I've not lived in Glasgow very long. I've never been to a place like that before. And you look at all these glorious bottles with all this lovely, well, what I now would know as lovely liquid staring back at you. And you go, I'm here. Why not give it another go? Do you know what I mean? So speaking to the barman, it's one of those while in Rome moments, isn't it? So speaking to the barman, he says, okay, so I told him my first experience of whiskey. I've never touched it since. He's like, all right, okay, what sort of things do you drink and what sort of things do you like? And then he pulls out this bottle of whiskey and goes, there you go. I still to this day can't remember what it was. Genuinely can't remember what it was. And I was like, hang on. So, and he taught me how to approach a whiskey as well. Start off. We'll give it a bit of a nose. And we'll approach it slowly. And he didn't quite go full on Richard Patterson with it. He was quite explanatory. He didn't start dousing the floors in the carpet in the bar, and washing his glass out and all that sort of good thing. But he taught me how to approach a whiskey, and then then how to taste a whiskey. He didn't go mental on the tasting notes and you've got to describe this, that, and the other, which I thought was really good. But just like nose it first, get to know it. Spend some time to get to know the whiskey, nosing it. Then have a small sip, and then have a slightly bigger sip. And then next thing we're what 12 years down the line, and I am working in whiskey now. And it's phenomenal. The journey, the past 12 years has been a thrill ride, but the past 6 especially, where I've really got into whiskey. Do you know what I mean? Like joining whiskey clubs in Glasgow, going all up and down the UK and into Europe to attend whiskey festivals as a customer, etc. It's just the world of whiskey is a phenomenal place, Greg. It is a phenomenal place.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And my whiskey journey is a little bit like yours in that it's funny. The first place I realized how lucky this makes me, but then what happened next undid it, which was the first place I ever seriously drank whiskey was in the Bon Accord 30 years ago. Paul didn't even own it yet.
No, but 30 years ago, Paul wouldn't have been there then.
Yeah. And I was an exchange student in Glasgow, and a friend took us there one night, and I drank lots and lots of whiskeys, and I thought, this is really interesting. And I was going back to the States, and I remember I was so proud of it. I bought a bottle of the Glenlivet 12-year-old, and it was like angels would sing when I would hold this bottle, and I took it home and I put it on the shelf for a special event. But then I didn't want to touch it. It was so precious to me because I was 19 that I went and bought, and this I will name drop this because I don't think it exists anymore. I bought a bottle in the U.S. of a thing called Claymore Scottish style whiskey distilled in Baltimore, Maryland, and it was the worst. It put me off whiskey for a couple of years. It was just the worst thing in the world. So it took me years to kind of revisit it.
It's probably not around anymore because they had Scottish style whiskey on it. So the SWA would have probably taken them to court.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a massive big cease and desist against that,
Yeah, I mean, it was. I still remember it because I wasn't old enough to buy liquor yet in the U.S. And my roommate he bought it for me for a Super Bowl party. Scottish style Claymore Scottish style whiskey. I mean, I'm sure it was just neutral grain spirit and some E150, and they called it a day.
more than likely, Greg, a quick turnaround.
I think it was like $5.
I think a lot of people's first experience of whiskey, unless you come from like a whiskey drinking household, do you know what I mean? I don't mean like, you're starting as a kid and all the kids have for breakfast have a dram and that. Do you know what I mean? I mean, like your dad or your granddad or the people you grew up around were whiskey drinkers, So if you don't come from that sort of environment, most people's first go of whiskey, really, the first experience of whiskey, would be exactly just, like that, and there you go, get that down you, like at New Year's Eve, and you get a shot in your back. Oh man, and it does put a lot of people off. It's not until you actually somebody takes you underneath their wing and go, no, son, that's not how it's done. This is how it's done. Do you know what I mean? And it takes the time to get you to appreciate something, and now it's just wow. And I enjoy passing that on to people now. Do you know what I mean? Educating people while I'm still being educated at the same time on things. It's a phenomenal experience. I really do enjoy it.
Me too. Me too. And I don't get to do it quite the way you do it, 1-to-1. You know what I mean? I've been doing it through a film, but I get to go. Most of the people that come to see the film online and talk to me online are people who already like it, but not everyone. I mean, my wife has gotten into whiskey now because of me, and her favorite whiskey is Lafroig.
Wow! So that's not mincing about. I mean, that's a pretty heavy hitter.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? A lot of people's first introduction to like a peated whiskey would be like a Lafroig 10 or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Which is just a big punch in the face of a dram.
Yeah.
It took me a while to get into peated whiskey. The first I tried it, somebody gave me, I think it was something like a Lafroig 10 or whatever, and I was like, whoa, what on God's green earth is that? You expect me to put that into my body? Not happening, not a chance. And then I was at a weekend away with some pals, and somebody pulled out a bottle of Lafroig. I was like, whoa. I had been drinking whiskey a little bit then. I was like, whoa, no, come on, this is all we got. Shops are like a million miles away. Not happening. This is all we got. All right then. So I was sort of like forced into enjoying it because that was like the only dram available. And now I'm a big peat head, quite frankly. Love the stuff. Yeah. So everybody watching, what was your first experience of whiskey?
I would love to hear that. Yeah, if anyone would like to throw that in the comments, we do have a comment here from our friend Udo. It says, nice. Lafroig is a favorite dram to start with. Well done, Greg. It wasn't me that did it. I mean, of course I had a lot to do with it, but we went to Lafroig. I mean, so she that's like starting off at the Vatican.
Pretty much.
They let her shovel peat. So she was, but. People always ask me how many bottles of whiskey I own, and I honestly don't know. But let's say 100, and she owns one, and it's always a Lafroig. When her Lafroig is dead, she gets a different one, and she lets me pick them. But she likes them all. I think she has a 4 oak right now. But
nice.
But
I'm quite a fan of the Lafroig lore these days. I quite like a nice lore. That's quite nice.
I think we own. I mean, let's face it, we own both of them, but but they're all in the same cabinet. But I think we have like 5 Lafroigs right now. I've always liked Lafroig. I like really smoky foods. Peated whiskey was easy for me to get into because I like smoked cheese. I just bought some smoked cheese this morning at the store.
Austrian smoked cheese by any chance?
Pardon?
Austrian smoked cheese by any chance?
No, it's English smoked cheddar.
Okay.
3-year-old English smoked cheddar that. My wife always buys this one Irish cheese that she really likes, and I just decided to mix it up a bit when I was out shopping. Because this weekend's Mother's Day here, so I'm working some angles.
Getting the brownie points in.
Well, she doesn't know it yet, and hopefully she won't watch this until afterwards. But yeah, I was out laying the groundwork.
Nice.
My kids are too little to be of much help in that regard yet. So
yeah. You think so? My stepson's 16 and he's still not much help in regards to that either. So,
well, my son's 10 and he's no help at all, and my daughter's 6 and wants to be helpful, but her helpfulness is like impossible. She's
more of a hindrance, yeah.
Yeah, it's more like we should get mom a unicorn.
Yes, I like
it. We do have a comment not about whiskey but about cheese. Everyone loves Kerrygold. It's actually we do like Kerrygold, Mark. But it's not Kerrygold that she likes. I don't even remember what it's called. It's some aged Irish cheddar that she buys all the time. She likes extra sharp cheese, sharp to the point that it falls apart.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Okay, on Bath Street in Glasgow, there's that. I want to say it's called the Galleries. It's like a mall, like a shopping mall, sort of indoor. It now has the big ironwork on the face of it.
On Bath Street?
I think it's on Bath Street. Kind of down near Central Station.
So Bath Street runs...
Oh, wait, no. So it's on Argyle. It's on Argyle.
Argyle Street.
Yeah. Is that what I'm thinking of? It has the giant ironwork art kind of on the facade of the building.
Yeah, it's on the St. Enoch Centre.
I think it's north of the St. Enoch Center. This isn't quite as big as that, smaller, but
Princess Square.
yes, that's it.
Or the Princess Square. Or no, come down a little bit. You've got the Argyle Arcade. It's got all the jewelers in it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, Argyle Arcade, yeah.
Okay, so when I was an exchange student there, in the bottom floor of that, there was a shop, a little tiny shop that was run by an old man. And what the entire shop was, he sold was whiskey miniatures.
Okay.
But the cool thing is you could go in there and for a reasonable amount of money, you could try 50 whiskeys. And when I was coming back to the States, I remember going in there with my backpack and just like shoveling miniatures in my backpack of different whiskeys, but it's gone. I went and looked a few years ago when I was back but it's a shame because it's such a great idea for a shop. It's such a great way to get into whiskey.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think a lot more whiskey specialists now carry a good range of miniatures now. So if you're looking to maybe not spend out the 70, 80, 90 upwards pounds for a full bottle, for like £5 or £6 or whatever, normally under a tenner, depending on what whiskey it is, you can get a miniature of that. And most places now carry a decent range of it. Probably not enough to do a full shop like your man there had, but they definitely do. So like Good Spirits, which is on Bath Street.
Sure, yeah.
This company, they've got a decent array of miniatures. I know the whiskey shop they do as well. So they've got stores up and down the country. They normally carry a decent amount of miniatures as well. And I'm sure there are plenty of others that I'm not mentioning. I'm not mentioning them because there's just going to be loads, quite frankly. And that's the first two that I can remember, just like because they're on my doorstep.
I'll say this, but this is going to sound like I'm giving a plug, and I'm telling you I'm not. I'm not giving a plug. I just think it's actually as cool as I'm going to say it is. But there's an online whiskey club here in the U.S., Flaviar. I think that they're in the U.K. now.
They ship to the U.K. now as well. I used to be a member.
Well, so their miniatures kits are awesome because this is it. It looks like a whiskey tube, and then you open it up, and then there's 3 miniatures in here. And the cool thing I like about this is these bottles don't say the whiskey on them. They just have a letter on them. And then inside here is that. So you can sort of do it semi-blind.
Yeah, you've got the cards, haven't you, which tells you what it is. And also on the top there, you've got like a sort of stone coaster.
Yes. Which my 6-year-old daughter discovered if you drop on the tile floor, it will break in half. I have a different one. This is a different one.
Oh, baby.
But I really like miniatures as a great way to try new whiskeys. And
definitely.
I mean, at this point, I'll just try any whiskey. But I'm constantly trying to. There's people in America that are frankly afraid of Octomore, and I always tell them like it's not what you think it is. It's not. Really people think it's going to be like Lafroig concentrated into pure evil, but it's not that at all.
Really not. You couldn't get any further from the truth, I don't think, on that one. I think there's a certain level of peatedness where your palate becomes blind to it. So it's like too powerful. Because, like the Octomores, over 100 ppm on the majority of them. There's a couple that are just below that, but the majority, are over 100 ppm. I think anything like above 60, 65 ppm, I think your senses go blind to it. So when I've had a couple of Octomores, I don't get that big peat hit that evening. I get all the lovely flavours. I really do enjoy drinking them. It's not until the next morning where it's sort of like the peatedness has come down a little bit because it's going through your body that you go, oh, just before you go and brush your teeth for about 15th time. And then you have a little bit of wind and you go, oh, there's that peat there. Do you know what I mean? So you don't get it till a good 9-10 hours later.
Yeah. And it's, I love this stuff. And I think I've convinced a couple people just in the last few days to try it. And it's funny because when we interviewed Charlie McLean for the film, he was talking about really giant sherry bombs. And he was talking about, I don't honestly remember what whiskey it was. It wasn't relevant. We weren't shooting. This is while we were getting set up. And he was saying that it was such a huge sherry bomb that he could taste sherry while he was brushing his teeth the next morning.
Yeah, you do get the occasional dram that stands out like that, you can get rid of it. Lunchtime, you're still sweating it out sort of thing. Yeah.
There's the Single Cask Nation released a Ben Nevis here. And it's a 6-year-old Ben Nevis Amontillado cask in its first entire life. And it's like getting hit in the head by an old lady with her purse, and she has a brick in her purse.
Yes. I've never had a bad Ben Nevis.
No, but but I've only ever had independent bottlings. I've never had an official bottling of Ben Nevis.
Well, no, so the Ben Nevis 10, it's obviously because they're owned by a Japanese company, the
Yeah.
majority of the 10-year-old, when it gets bottled, gets shipped straight to Japan. So what does get left for the UK and the rest of the world consumers isn't very much. So I'm lucky enough to know the mashman at Ben Nevis. So whenever they do a release, he goes, "Mick, are you wanting a bottle?" "Yes, please. Yes, please." And he sends me one down from Fort William. So yeah, some sad news around Ben Nevis. They just lost Colin Ross the other day, unfortunately. So that's a bit sad for them at the moment.
Yeah, the other day I was actually on a Zoom talking to Jim McEwen about some stuff we've got coming up, and he got the news while we were on the Zoom together because he used to manage Lafroig, Colin Ross did, and so they knew each other quite well.
Yeah. Well, no, if you're in the whiskey industry, you're going to know Jim, aren't you? Because he's just that character that just knows everybody. You know, he can't go anywhere, and you can't even step one foot on Isla without Jim going, "I know where you
are." We did Jim and I were both on Roy Duff's Aquavitae V-Pub last night, and it was a valedictory moment. I mean, if it was possible through YouTube Live for people to carry someone around on their shoulders, that's what they would have done last night.
Yeah.
He had close to 500 people watching him live, and it went on, and it was a real sort of greatest hits of Jim McEwen telling stories. And it was great. It was a lot of fun.
Fantastic. I know he's a great guy. I had the privilege of, obviously I met Jim a couple of times, and I had the privilege of hand delivering him to you last year in Nuremberg.
Yeah, and then the day I met you, it's funny. You earlier today, you said you left in November of 2019. I met you in November of 2019.
That's right.
I met you we did that advanced screening of the film in Glasgow, and Jim was there, and that's the night I met you and Jack Milroy.
Yeah, I mean, what a night that was. So me and my good friend Neil Murphy spent the evening just like obviously speaking to yourself in some no but then we just like ended up squaring away a table up at the back of that bar that we were all in after the film. Just me, Neil, Jack Milroy and his nephew. That was phenomenal. God knows what time we got home, but me and Neil had to be up early the next day because it was Glasgow Whisky Festival the next day. So we go over to Hampden Park to drink a lot more whiskey.
Well, the next day I flew to Germany for the first time for Udo's Celtic Castle, because then I went back to Germany when I saw you the next time. That's the last time I traveled. That's the last time I traveled for abroad or
same.
Yeah, I remember flying home from that from the village. Flying home in the Frankfurt airport, I started seeing people in masks.
Yeah,
and people were talking. Do you think this is going to become a real thing? And and I was in duty free, where I spend my times in airports, and I saw a couple people in masks.
And it started getting a bit crazy after that, didn't it? I was working for the whiskey shop in Buchanan Galleries in Glasgow before I landed this role, basically working for Mackmyra, and we shut that shop on the 23rd of March because of. Yeah, and that was it. It's great to think that was like just over a year ago now. You know, and we're only starting to even see a glimpse of now what's going to be normal. As we're starting to open back up in the UK, it's been a crazy year and a bit.
Well, my fingers are crossed. I'm fully vaccinated now, and my fingers are crossed that I'm going to come in September to the UK if it's legal and feasible and responsible to do so. I'm going to, because we're trying to make a second film just about independent bottling.
Okay.
And we've shot way over half of it already. But I need like 5 days of shooting, and that's all I need, and we're done. And I haven't been able to do it for the last year. So as soon as I can, I will. One of the members of our team lives in Edinburgh, and he's been shooting stuff for me when he can, but it's just him alone, and sometimes his wife helping him. So it's not but enough about that. I want to hear a little bit more about Mackmyra.
Okay, so Mackmyra as an entity, well, as a thing, really started as a conversation back in 1998 between 8 friends that went to university together. So when they all left university, they used to meet up every year for a wee reunion at their ski lodge in Sälen in Sweden. So in 1998, everybody pitched up to dinner with a bottle of whiskey. Now, they all knew that each other liked whiskey, but it was just, I'll have a whiskey sort of thing, nothing. But then everybody rocked up with a bottle to dinner. And then the conversation over dinner said, well, the question got asked, why is there no Swedish single malt distillery? Why has nobody done it? We've got the right environment. We've got the right ingredients on our doorstep. We've got great water, access to great barley. You know what I mean? We produce yeast in the country. Everything that we need is here. Why has nobody done it? So they set out on that journey. They come over to Scotland, visited places like Cragganmore and the Freud, and a few other places as well, Glenmorangie. While they were engineers, right? They weren't distillers, so they wanted to go and get in depth into distilling, basically. Back to Sweden, they put together 100-litre charge still by hand. They hand welded it. In December the 18th, 1999, the very first drops of Mackmyra come off the still. So that was us on the December last year, 21 years old. We started off in like a small garage type setup, basically. And then in 2001, we went into our first grown-up distillery at Mackmyra, which is actually a village about 12 kilometers west of Gävle, which is about an hour and a half to 2 hours drive north from Stockholm. So just to put it in a bit up there and over there a little bit. So that used to be a mill. So the building we took over used to be a mill and a power station, and it was Mackmyra, and called it Mackmyra Brook. So Brook translates in some of the old language into industrial or useful. There's actually quite a few translations for Brook, but the majority is around like industrialness and usefulness, etc. Well, Mackmyra can be broken down into two. It gets broken down into two. So Mack means like annoying wee insect, like a midgie, basically, right? And then Myra is Maya or bog. So basically, Mackmyra translates as midge bog. We're also, you're just trying to sound Scottish. Well, we're not. There's actually a place in Sweden called Mackmyra where our distillery was, or it is, should I say? So we're not, we're not trying to name play on anything whatsoever. But then when you break it down into the meaning, you go, actually, no, that could literally be a name of a distillery on the west coast of Scotland without questionable doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
No, good.
No, I was just gonna mention midges.
Yeah,
we have footage. We shot some early footage of the film of me standing outside Ardbeg trying to do a little direct to camera, and I can't get through a minute. I was like,
chewing them and picking them out your eyes and everything. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible wee beasties. But no. So we stayed there. So we brought our first proper adult wash stills from Fort Sipes, a 10,000 litre wash still and 8,000 litre spirit still. And they're still at Mackmyra Brook. We closed Mackmyra Brook down, or we mothballed it in 2011 because we opened a brand new distillery in the Mackmyra Whisky Village in Gävle, in the forest. It's absolutely fantastic. It's called the Gravity Distillery. It stands at 35 meters tall, and it's got quite a weird shape to it. Really, it's like thicker at the bottom, comes out a little bit, and then comes in and up like that. It's quite a weird shape. What we do there is we use the power of gravity to move the ingredients. So we use a transporter, takes it up the malted barley up to the top, and then we use gravity to bring it down through milling, into mashing, into fermentation, into the distillation, and then down into the spirit store, into the filling store, should I say, using the power of gravity. when we took the first readings for energy consumption, etc., we were 45% more effective. Greener than we were at Mackmyra Brook. So yeah, it's phenomenal. To my knowledge, I always say this when I'm doing whiskey tasting. To my knowledge, we're the only gravity distillery in the world. There's one currently being built in the Portaleaf by the Portaleaf distillers that they've called a vertical distillery. So it's going to operate very much the same. They've just poured their foundations, I believe. So they're still a few years away from producing. So at the moment, we're the only gravity distillery producing that I'm aware of. I know some other distilleries, they use parts of their process in a gravity sort of feed, but ours is wholly gravitational. And it's a lovely distillery set in the middle of the forest. In the middle of the forest, right at the top. Right at the top is a sky bar. We can look out over Sweden, basically over the forest and everything like that. Then underneath it starts. So we've got the milling room, and then we go through all the stages. So it's traditional. So we do the exact same thing as a normal horizontal layout distillery, but we just flipped it on its head, basically. I see Andrew said Portaleaf distillery. Yeah. So yeah. Yes, they are.
That's the one you're talking about. Yeah, yeah.
The one I mentioned, yeah.
There's a brewery here in the States, I want to say in Vermont, that does that. And I'm drawing a blank on which one it is. I want to say it's the Alchemist, but I don't think that it is because I've been to their new brewery and it's not tall enough to be. But the Alchemist is an absolutely incredible brewery in Vermont. Probably my favorite brewery in the world, certainly in the States. But it's I know they just moved into new digs over the last year or two. And because it's Vermont, they have their own frisbee golf course built onto the grounds. What's the output currently in Mackmyra?
So, great question. Our capacity is 1.2 million liters.
Oh, wow!
So yeah, it's decent. It's by no means up there with like the Macallans and all that sort of stuff of the world, but in terms of output, etc. But no, it's fairly decent. It's Anchor, a lot of distilleries are on average about that these days. For the size, etc. So yeah, it's a 10,000 litre wash still and an 8,000 litre spirit still.
That should, at that volume, that should be getting imported to the States soon. Then consider that a request.
Okay, cool. I'll see what I can do on that. I'll see what I can do. I'll get onto the head shed in Sweden on Monday morning and say, right, what we're doing about getting into America. Big G needs it. We've got to get it there because I really like the story you told me the other week.
About
me, that little kid with his dad. That was fantastic.
That was I was in my neighborhood. I live in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles, in case anyone knows that, but it's in east of Hollywood. And I was walking to the bookstore, I think, or the post office. They're both on the same street. And a father was loading up his Prius. I think it was a Toyota Prius. He was loading it up, and there was a little boy standing there, and he was in a Mackmyra baseball hat. And just as I just walked by, I said, "Hey, nice hat," to the little kid. And the father stood up and turned around. He said, "You know what that hat is?" I said, "Yeah, it's Mackmyra. It's Swedish whiskey." He said, "How do you know that?" And then I told him who I was and what I did, and then we sort of became friends. I mean, we're Instagram friends. I don't hang out with him, but he's a big whiskey Instagram. He's part of a group of people that does a big whiskey. Has a big whiskey account on Instagram. Then they do reviews and stuff like that. And he couldn't believe that I recognized it. He's probably was worried I was going to say something about his 4-year-old in whiskey merch.
No, I love that. So we are in America in that respect, obviously. I don't know if we've got any stockists at the moment, but I'm sure somebody in the head office is working on that.
Well, there's a liquor store around the corner from me called Captain Cork, and you should start there because I can walk there.
Any recommendations? Find my way of places to get into not a problem. We can start from there, Greg. We can start from there.
It's funny. I'm from Pennsylvania, which is literally half as far to Scotland as I am now. And the selection here is exponentially better in whiskeys. There's some amazing whiskey stores in Los Angeles, really, truly phenomenal.
Yeah.
And
that's where the famous people live, Greg.
Well, that's probably part of it. Yeah. And also the other part of it is the flip side is that Pennsylvania is like the worst state in the country as far as liquor laws are concerned.
Oh, so is it really?
It's all owned by the government. And
it's funny.
It has changed a bit in the last couple, maybe 15 years. But when I lived there, it was going to the liquor store was the exact same experience as going to get your driver's license renewed. They were all state workers in like shirts and ties, and they would be open from 9 to 5 days a week. I mean, it was just like the government. It was, now,
isn't it?
Now they pretend it's fun. Now they have dark wood trim in the stores, and now it says fine wines and spirits on the. It used to say state store.
Intimidating. It's a little bit like that in Sweden. So the alcohol laws and stuff like that in Sweden are probably archaic. It's probably the best word to describe them. So again, government-owned monopoly for the stores, the Systembolaget. That's the only place that you can buy any alcohol whatsoever. And there's a big thing around not advertising fun with alcohol. Do you know what I mean? You can't have a picture advertising your whiskey of like the master distiller or something like that with going. You can't do it. So we've actually got a court battle on our hands with the government because we posted some Facebook posts, really, really tame. There was nothing outrageous or offensive in them whatsoever. And to help us fight that, we've actually launched the Freedom Pack, the Fleet Pack. And our proceeds from that are going to help fight our court case, etc. So, and we've taken 6 bottles, and on those bottles we've actually put the picture that we've gotten in trouble for. And one of them is of Angela Durazzo, I said our chief nosing officer, at a whiskey festival in London with the Swedish flag around it like a cape, just doing that. Nothing offensive whatsoever. Just literally a woman at a whiskey fair having fun. Right? That's what an image is. No, can't have that. And you're like, are you actually serious? It's crazy mad over there. Crazy mad.
I just learned something, not just about that. I learned that too, but I realized something else. A few months ago, we tried to put an ad promoting our Burns Night thing on Facebook, and it kept getting rejected. And we kept going through. We weren't breaking any rules. And eventually our head of marketing, who's in Ireland, she said, somehow she was able to see the rejection, that it was rejected because one of the countries we listed, we wanted the ad to run in was in Sweden.
Ah, right. Well, there you go then.
And we just turned off Sweden, and then the ad ran, and it was no problem. And there was nothing even, I think it was a glass of whiskey with a hand. You know what it was? It was, you may have seen it. It's a photo of Jim McEwen on standing, pulling a cask sample and handing it down to me. And that was it. And it kept getting rejected. It was like, what are we doing? Like,
it's madness, Greg. Honestly, if you look on the Mackmyra.com website and type in Freedom Pack in the search bar, and it'll come out and it'll show you what whiskies are. It shows you the pictures, and it gives you the whole spiel about what the law says and how we broke the law. It's madness. Yeah, it's actually madness, Greg. But it is what it is. It is.
I just found out a few weeks ago, my best friend still lives in Pennsylvania. We grew up together, and I tease him all the time about Pennsylvania's liquor laws. And he just found out at the end of Prohibition, the guy who was in charge of Prohibition for the U.S. government went back to Pennsylvania and he was from there and became the first head of the Liquor Control Board, which is still what it's called there. And he literally wrote in his manifesto that his goal was to he said, it has been decided wrongfully so that people in Pennsylvania should be allowed to have alcohol. So I'm going to make it as inconvenient and as expensive as I possibly can. This was 100 years ago.
Wow.
And mission accomplished, Gifford Pinchot.
Just crazy.
Anyway.
crazy. But we can advertise. So the Mackmyra UK Facebook page, we put lots of good stuff in that on there where we don't break the law. So that's good. That's good for them.
Well, I realize we have to wrap up soon. So before we do, though, tell me what's coming up. What exciting things Mackmyra doing here in the next couple of months?
So we release 2 seasonals every year: a spring, summer, and an autumn, winter. 6 weeks ago, we released Bjorksav or Birchsap. So look out for that. Look out for that. All our bottles look very similar. All our seasonals look very similar. Birchsap wine casks we finished the whiskey in. Beautiful since the summer. And we also do what's called a Moments range, which is our premium luxury range. And we've got a new one of those coming out in the next couple of weeks. So I can't say anything more than that. But yeah, keep your eyes and ears to the ground. We've got Mackmyra, the Mackmyra Inn. Myself and my fellow brand ambassador and area sales manager of the south of England, or the south of the UK, should I say, we host a weekly pub on a Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, at 7 p.m. UK time. What else have we got? What else? And we do a tasting, a core range plus seasonal tasting every 2 weeks as well. So lots of stuff happening over on the Mackmyra Swedish Whisky UK Facebook page and on the Instagram and things like that as well, and on our YouTube channel, Mackmyra Whisky UK on YouTube. There's all of our back videos. I mean, we've been doing online shows now for just over a year.
I've watched them. Yeah, they're great.
In one guise or another. We've been doing the pub since October last year, and that seems to be really, really good. We get a guest on, and we just talk whiskey. Sometimes we go away from whiskey. We had a guy on, and we ended up talking about cocktails and using baked beans. And that was down a whole different rabbit hole, and it was brilliant. It honestly was brilliant. So tune into that sort of stuff, guys. And we do informative stuff. There's Mackmyra Live to look back on. Where we do in-depth stuff at the distillery, in-depth stuff with our Cooper, and all that sort of good stuff. So there's lots and lots of content out there to catch up on if you want to know more about Mackmyra. And also, we've got Mackmyra.co.uk and Mackmyra.com websites as well, and the shops where you can buy. And we're pretty much all over the UK now as well.
I'll put the main website back up there. But yeah, so thank you so much, man. This has been a lot of fun and very educational. And I'll share this with the 3-year-old down the street so he can stay up on it. I can't wait to see you again, and we'll have a dram. We'll go to the Bonaccord when I'm back. I'm gonna host a night at the Bonaccord when I'm back in Glasgow. Do it up.
Let's make that happen.
Yeah,
let's make that happen. I can remember at this end for you, mate, and go and see Paul for you. That's not a problem.
I think they open tonight, right? Or is it next week?
No, the 17th.
Oh, okay.
So Monday the 17th, yeah. Indoor alcohol consumption can recommence from the 17th of March. At the moment, if you've got a beer garden or a big enough beer garden to make it worthwhile, you can open now. You can have food indoors without alcohol. But from May the 17th, you can have alcohol and food indoors.
Well, I'll be there shortly thereafter, as soon as I can. So,
brilliant.
Thank you so much, Mickey. I really, really appreciate it. I see Andrew Nicholson has another comment here. Bought a Mackmyra sample pack recently. It was great.
If you see the advert on Facebook, guys, you can get it for about £12.95. And then it's about £4.95 for delivery, and you get five 5CL samples in that.
Nice.
Normally it costs $24.95.
Cool. All right. Well, have a good weekend, man. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. It's been a blast.
Bye.